If you have ever leaked when you sneezed, jumped, laughed, coughed, or picked up your child, chances are someone has either told you or you have felt like you've needed to do more Kegels. Kegels have become like the universal answer of pelvic floor. Leaking, pain, heaviness, weak core. You just had a baby. Do Kegels. That's what you're told. But what if I told you that many moms don't need Kegels and the Kegels are actually making your symptoms worse? That's what we're diving into today.
You are listening to Belly Birth Beyond with Pelvic Floor Mama, hosted by Becca Boving, a PTA, mom of two, and now your go-to pelvic floor coach. Welcome to the safe space where no topics of motherhood are off limits and judgment is left at the door. Too many mamas are dismissed when they've got valid concerns. If you're sick of hearing that's normal when it feels otherwise, keep listening.
What moms need to know about Kegels and why you should stop doing them, but what you should be doing instead. So Kegels become this point of contention, like everybody's like pelvic floor. Oh, it's just do Kegels. When someone tells you that pelvic floor is just do Kegels, do you feel like you need any help or support, or do you feel like you can just do that on your own? Right? You can just do Kegels on your own. Why do I have to go see somebody? You don't feel like you need to see somebody until the Kegels aren't working anymore. And then you're like, it's not working. I think I need to see somebody. This is where Kegels aren't the answer for everybody. In fact, if you are not new around here, you have heard me talk about Kegels and my stance on them. I don't love them. I don't use the terminology. In fact, the whole reason why we have a name Kegel is like some male physician at some point called them Kegels. And that's what we've been doing. And so many people don't do them correctly. So instead of trying to change what they're already doing, I teach them something new, quote unquote, right? So if people are told to just do Kegels, it's almost like if someone tells you, oh, you just need glasses, but no one actually checks your eyes to see what type of glasses you need, what prescription, if you're nearsighted, farsighted, like it's just this generic blend of get glasses, right? And so when we're doing Kegels, when we're like prescribing Kegels, quote unquote, we need to make sure that first and foremost, you actually need them. If you're having pain, leaking, heaviness, if you're preparing for birth, chances are you don't need Kegels. You don't need more Kegels. And if you've been doing them and it's not working, this probably isn't what you need. Okay. We need to be able to understand how to relax our pelvic floor too. We also need to take into consideration how hard our pelvic floor is already working, especially during pregnancy and even postpartum. So during pregnancy, if you don't know this, your pelvic floor is a hammock and it's supporting your bladder, bowel, and uterus, which means it helps support your baby as it grows. A lot of times we're also told not to do any core strengthening or to be careful with your core strengthening. And so during pregnancy, your core gets significantly weaker, which means your pelvic floor has to work even harder because your pelvic floor makes up the bottom of your core. Okay, you with me so far? So we need to make sure that your core is strong and your pelvic floor is strong. Most of the time, your pelvic floor is just working too gosh darn hard and it needs support from other things. Okay, so it's not that you need more Kegels, it's that we need to understand what your body truly needs and how to support it. Kegels often are not done correctly at all. Like moms are like, yeah, I know how to do it. But then when it comes down to it, you aren't doing it correctly, which means you're clenching your cheeks, like your butt cheeks. So as you try to do a Kegel, you're squeezing your butt, you're clenching your legs together or your thighs, you're holding your breath, you're tightening your core, you're doing all of these other things because you're trying to get a really strong Kegel contraction. So you're using the bigger muscles that surround your pelvic floor because your pelvic floor is really small muscles. And so when you do that, you are creating dysfunction, essentially. You're not doing them correctly. And we need your pelvic floor to work on its own. We need you to be able to use those tiny muscles, and we need those muscles to be able to hold for certain amounts of time, to be able to hold your bladder, bowel, and help support things, right? So if you're leaking like pee, when you cough, sneeze, laugh, jump, can't make it to the bathroom, or you are passing gas when you don't want to, or you're having constipation, we need to address your pelvic floor. So instead of just using the generic, you need Kegels, we need to dive into what you actually need. Okay, so Kegels aren't always the answer. In fact, we know that I don't use the terminology Kegels at all anymore. You're probably not doing them correctly, and I say that with the most love and care for you because I want you to feel relief and strong and comfortable in your body. So I want you to be able to know what you can do to support yourself. Okay. So tight pelvic floor also doesn't mean strong pelvic floor. Okay. So a lot of times we've talked a lot in different episodes too about how much tension your pelvic floor holds, right? So it's doing a lot of work throughout your life. And if we have weak core and weak glutes, it's doing even more work than it should be doing. And so we need to teach it we need to teach the awesome other muscles how to support it. So I always use the terminology of like, it's like a group project where one person does all the gosh darn work, but everybody gets credit. Okay. That's your bladder. That's what's happening with your core, your pelvic floor, and your glutes. Pelvic floor is doing all of the work, but everything's getting the credit. So we need to teach your core how to work. We need to teach your glutes how to work. We need to help this imbalance that's taking place. And that's where not everybody's the same. This is where it becomes important to know what you need and what's going to help you. If you think about a Kegel contraction too, a muscle can't relax, right? Like if it's tight, if your muscle can't relax, then it can't fully contract either. Think about like Popeye. We always use this terminology when we talk Kegels. Like every single one of us in the pelvic floor world, I feel like we talk about this. But think about doing like so many bicep curls all day long. Your muscles eventually like shorten, right? And then you can't straighten your arm all the way. And then you have this problem where you're just stuck in the state of contraction because your muscles are so tight and tired and fatigued. Imagine your pelvic floor doing that. With those tiny little muscles, imagine your pelvic floor doing that. That's what happens. So we have to be able to fully relax your pelvic floor and fully contract it. So we need to be able to have just some more support. Okay. So we're stopping Kegels. We're not doing them anymore. Not at red lights, not while you brush your teeth. We're not doing them. You're just going to take a break from that. Okay. Instead, if you don't want to do a Kegel, work on just breathing. And I think I've shared this before. Just stop and breathe. I need this reminder. I need someone to be like, I need an alarm and someone to actually make me do this. Like, stop, Becca. Just chill for 5 minutes. Everything else can wait and just breathe. Okay, maybe not 5 minutes. We don't always have 5 minutes, but we need to pause and do that because simply breathing is going to allow your pelvic floor to lengthen on the inhale because that's what your body's doing. That's what happens. And so when we just pause and we allow everything to relax and to just simply breathe, you're going to help support your pelvic floor and the needs of your pelvic floor. Okay. So instead of doing Kegels, start with just some breathing and work from there. If you're struggling with pain and leaking and weakness, get your core involved. Do you know how many times I've helped moms stop peeing themselves by just teaching them how to use their core the right way? Yes, there's a wrong way to use your core. There is. And it's really hard. Like, it's truly really hard. Especially when I get moms in the clinic and we work on breathing and core. They're like, this is so hard. And it's like, it is really hard. This is why we spend our time focusing on this, because once this clicks, once you get this, boom, your whole world opens up. Everything makes sense. You stop peeing yourself. You stop having all these other problems. Like, this is what you need before you do any of the other exercises. This is what we got to start with. This is where everything takes place. And that's what happens. Like, if you saw that mom that was peeing for 3.5 years, she was peeing. She even went to pelvic floor postpartum and she just peed herself when she stood up, when she lifted, when she coughed, sneezed. And you know how frustrating that is? It's so frustrating. And you're stuck wearing a pad all the time or having to change your underwear or even your pants. And you're just like, oh, this is just my life. This is how I'm going to live. Until finally you get to a point where you're like, I'm done. I need to do something about it. 3.5 years she was leaking. Within 1 week of implementing the B.S.R method, she was no longer leaking. 1 gosh darn week after 3.5 years. That's all it took. It's not always this easy, but yes, this is what happens when you are taught the basics of your pelvic floor and supporting your pelvis. The B.S.R method is what I've created that I think every single woman and mother needs to know and needs to have. So instead of doing Kegels, let's teach you how to breathe correctly. Let's teach you the basics of your pelvic floor that aren't Kegels. So that way you can stop peeing yourself and stop passing gas when you don't want to. Get rid of the constipation, the back pain, the hip pain, the pelvic pain, the pubic pain, the sciatic pain, the SI pain. There's so much that goes into this that if we just stop doing Kegels and taught you how to utilize the basics of your pelvic floor, if we just taught you what that is, aka if we just taught you how to breathe, and do these things. And then you could support your pelvis all day long. Boom. Life changed. Not even being dramatic. Like, that is why I just love this so much, is because that's all it takes, is just learning this method. It will change your life. It will change how you feel. And it's amazing. I love getting the messages from moms who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it was that easy. I can't believe I'm already feeling relief. So many moms are like, I'm scared to message you this, but I'm doing so much better. And it's been a couple days. And they don't want to, like, it's like they're like, they don't want to lose, like, they don't want to get too excited and then be blindsided, but they're also like super hopeful, like, oh my God, this just happened. And I'm feeling better. What on earth? I've tried everything and nothing's worked until this. Like, this is such a big piece of just stop doing Kegels. Okay. We're going to stop doing Kegels. We're going to stop using the terminology Kegels. Stop giving this guy credit for something that we can't even do correctly and no one teaches us how to actually do it. Pelvic floor is more than just doing Kegels. I remember being in the hospital bed after I gave birth to my daughter. I had a significant tear, mind you. And I knew I'd have to go to pelvic floor, and I was going to go to my mentor, which I did. But I wanted to test the staff. I wanted to know what they were telling moms what pelvic floor was when they asked, because that's what we do, right? After we give birth, if someone does recommend pelvic floor, which is amazing. I was so overjoyed when they recommend pelvic floor while I was in the hospital. Like, I was only in the hospital 24 hours after I gave birth. So it wasn't even, I think it was like 36 hours total, if that. And so it was amazing to hear them be like, you're going to go to pelvic floor. But I'm like, so what is pelvic floor? What am I going to do there? And they're like, oh, just Kegels and stuff. What mom in her right mind is going to want to take her newborn baby or find childcare for her newborn baby to go to a clinic and spend X amount of time driving to this clinic, 30 to an hour and a half time in this clinic to drive back and, like, just to do Kegels? Would you do that if someone told you that? Probably not. But that's what's happening, is we're just told, just do some Kegels. We need to do better. You deserve better than that. So I'm not saying Kegels are bad, okay? There's a place and a time to do a pelvic floor contraction. But when you have been doing Kegels wrong for so long, trying to reteach you how to do it correctly is a lot harder than just saying, we're going to do a pelvic floor contraction and this is how you do it. Because it's like teaching your brain something new, and it's a lot easier for you to grasp it. Because you're not like retraining your brain how to do a Kegel. You're just learning something new. And it's so much easier. It sounds crazy, but it's that psychological aspect. So that's why I say stop doing Kegels. Truly, if you are in that age bracket of like preparing to give birth, or preparing to get pregnant, like trying to conceive, pregnant, preparing for birth, postpartum, you probably don't need Kegels anyway. You probably really don't. Think about how weak your core gets during pregnancy, because you're told not to use it and you don't know how to use it safely, right? Like, you don't know what to do to safely use your core during pregnancy. So that happens, and then you give birth, and oh my goodness, your core postpartum is one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my life, right? Like that, I talked to so many moms about that experience. It is so humbling. And so when your core is that weak postpartum, what has to pick up the slack? Your pelvic floor. Do you think your pelvic floor really needs more Kegels when it's already working so hard? No, it doesn't. It needs you to reconnect with your core, and your core to reconnect with your pelvic floor, so then your pelvic floor doesn't have to work so hard. So it's not necessarily about doing more Kegels. It's about reconnecting and rebuilding and teaching you how your body is supposed to actually work, like what your body's actually supposed to be doing. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit, and the less you have to think about it. And pretty soon your body's just picking up where it should be. Your brain's telling your muscles when to work without you having to tell your brain to do that. And it's simple as that. It really is. So if you are still doing Kegels, remember, we're not doing Kegels anymore. You're going to breathe. You're going to replace it with just some breathing. Relax your jaw, let your shoulders fall, let the stress go for like 2 minutes. Okay. This is a gentle reminder for myself too. I'm very high stress. I hold a lot of tension. Okay. Gentle reminder. Instead of Kegels. If you need help or support, honestly, if you're like, okay, great, you told me not to do Kegels, but now what do I do? The 5-minute Mama Relief Reset is the perfect spot for you to start. This is a great starting point. It's 5 minutes, 5 days a week. For 5 days, not 5 days a week. It's 5 minutes for 5 days. Okay. You start to implement this B.S.R method that I'm like so excited to have created for you. By day 5, you're putting it all together and you're able to put it into your daily life. Makes it so much easier for you. Okay. Then if you need more help in your postpartum, you can do the postpartum mama recovery reset. If you're postpartum right now and you just want it, you can. There's also 6 weeks to reclaim your core for postpartum moms. Or you guys, the main program, pain-free pregnancy and postpartum package. You get your pregnancy, your birth, and your postpartum all in one spot. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 with the B.S.R method included. So you're supported every step of the way, and you get me in your pocket for like 3 months for free, for the same price of the package. It's included. And then if you'd like to continue that support, because so many moms like to have that support 6 months to a year postpartum, it's $27 a month. You still get your personalized plan. You still get unlimited access to me, community coaching calls, all the bonuses, like all the extra material and information in there, YouTube videos, all those things. So all the links I'm going to put down below. But we're going to stop doing Kegels. Okay. You've learned that Kegels aren't necessarily bad, but there's better things you can do. If someone starts talking about pelvic floor and they're like, oh yeah, just do some Kegels, you can be like, actually, I listened to this podcast. You should listen to it. It really opened my eyes to like what your pelvic floor is responsible for and like what we can do. Like, it's not just Kegels. At least that's what I hope you would say. Maybe it's not, but like, hopefully you learn something and you're like, wow, this makes sense. And I can start doing this. Right? Again, send me messages, DM me on Instagram if you have it, send me an email, drop comments. I'd love to hear if this is helping and if you've tried it and what else you need help with. Because I'm here to support you and I love hearing how you guys are doing. It's truly my favorite thing. So until next time, I hope you have a great day and I'm sending you so much love.
Nothing is TMI when it comes to motherhood, and common doesn't necessarily mean normal. Always trust your gut and never stop advocating for the care you deserve. If you enjoyed this podcast, help it reach more mamas like you by subscribing and leaving a review on your preferred listening platform. Keep in touch with me on Instagram by following Pelvic Floor Mama. See you next time.